time for one of my favorite topics, health. And we got both sides of the fence covered. Health with Dr. Rick Rapp, health with veterinarian Jacob Smith. And we are going to start in the healthcare field. And this time of year, as you're well aware, just about everybody out there either is suffering from a flu, they know somebody's got the flu, or they're bracing themselves for the inevitable when they do get the flu. What is going on, and why is this thing so rampant again?
Yeah, so, first I got to give the little spiel that says I'm giving my opinion as an independent physician, not on behalf of my employer, not speaking on behalf of my employer. And if you are sick, please call your doctor, go to the ER, whatever that is. The flu. All right, so we've had, there's been a lot. Influenza in this area. We've also seen a fair amount of COVID. We've seen norovirus coming through. Just a lot of virus again. And this year the whatever it is, and it seems to be doing the same no matter what you test positive for, or more often than not test negative for. It's just this long thing that's lasting about anywhere 6-8 weeks of really just feeling the cough and some of that stuff persisting. I think there's just been a lot more of, we might have let our guard down a little bit. As much as you might have hated some of the restrictions around COVID, like the social distancing and the masking. There's some wisdom in not, sitting immediately next to somebody who's hacking up a lung, so we're seeing a lot of that, so people are dealing with a lot of just heavy congestion too. So I think it's the stuff that really gets people down is just when you can't breathe well, the congestion in your nose, the lungs, but even then just the long persisting cough that won't leave you alone and wakes you up at night. Especially the kids are getting high fevers. I know Jake's very familiar with that. And it's just it's just really knocking you down. So there's not been that much. I think it's not so much that the flu is that bad. It's just that we're not seeing a lot of the very mild colds.
Mm-hmm. From a practical standpoint, then, Doc, I ask you, as a father of 5, what steps can I do practically to try to avoid my kids getting it?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I want to dispel a little bit. Like, kids should be sick. Like, they need to be sick 5 to 6 times a year. Like, you want to build an immune system, they need to be sick. Now, they don't need to be sharing water bottles and things like that. You can do some things like that. Teaching them some good things at school. Like,
over here, I'm going to spin your mouth quick. It's good for you.
Yeah. Like, I hear some of the stories of the hockey teams, sharing water bottles and stuff. That's super fun. But just teaching them, like, all right, don't share water bottles with other kids at school. If you see a kid who's sick at school, keep your distance a little bit. If your kid is sick, you can keep them home. But again, it's there's going to be some of that. Honestly, what I would recommend is just keep them well hydrated, good stuff, not your junk drinks. They need to be water, your vitamin C thing. So your orange juice is good. Get them taking a zinc, multivitamin with some zinc. Zinc is one thing that's really ever been shown to reduce the frequency and the length of a common cold. So zinc is good. I say even just a good tablespoon or 2 of good local raw honey seems to kind of keep some of the allergies type stuff away. So the less irritated and inflamed you are in general, it's going to probably reduce your susceptibility to illness. But I think another big thing is we've got to get our kids sleeping. They need good sleep. Get them to bed at a decent time. Stop the social media. Get off the screens. They need a consistent enough sleep. We all need that. We need, staying well hydrated. It's a big thing, but we also got to not be so busy. I mean, that's the biggest thing that's going to drag all of us down is we are not getting enough just rest and downtime. Our bodies are constantly in a state of stress. Your immune system's going to be weaker. So
practical question number 2 then is, and I think a lot of parents face this dilemma, is my kid is sick. He's coughing. He's got a fever. Clearly something's wrong. I'm a concerned parent. I've read the internet and it tells me the worst things out there.
Yeah.
I read the internet and I see, a kid in New York City, he died from the flu.
Yeah.
When is the right time to bring my child into the hospital to see someone like you?
Yeah. So, like I said, kids should be sick. They should get fevers. It's good to have fevers. It's good to cough. It's good to have vomit. It's good to have diarrhea. It's your body trying to get rid of stuff. Our body is desperately trying to get these bugs and viruses out of us, and we do everything in our power to keep them in us. Like, all right, let's take something to stop the nausea. Let's take something to stop the diarrhea. Let's stop the cough. No, that's your body trying to get rid of stuff. You need to let it happen, and then at some point exercise some reason, like, okay, my kid does need to sleep. So, if they have a fever greater than 104. All right, let me define what a fever is. A fever is a temperature of 100.4 or higher. Okay, not 98 when my kid normally is 97. No, that's
98.6 if you're more than that.
98.6 is normal. Okay, and you can sit there and say, "Oh, I usually am a 97, so when I'm 99, it's bad." I was like, "Yeah, you're not gonna die from it. You're fine."
Thermometer just sucks.
Yeah. No. Okay, if a kid goes over 104, they need to be brought in immediately, okay? If an adult goes over 100, 102, 103, they really should come in. But first, get some Tylenol in their system, some ibuprofen in their system. Even if you're not a drug person, it's time to get something in them to try and bring it down. If it's not coming down, then that's another time to get in. Something needs to be looked at. But let them be sick for a little bit and see. At some point, trust the mom instinct, the dad instinct, but it's but also I think a big thing is don't demand antibiotics all the time. The majority of these things are viruses. They are viruses. Viruses are not bacteria. Antibiotics are antibacterial. They will not kill a virus. I mean, and modern day, you go into the doctor feels like we have to give them something because they think of us as we're, just their consumers and we're a producer and we have to give them something.
I might have to take this back. A buddy of mine left a doctor a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
The doctor would not prescribe any sort of antibiotics. He wasn't very happy.
Yeah.
Wanted to get a second opinion. Ended up going into the same place. They basically gave them to him.
Yeah.
Do I get to tell him that the doctor was more than likely right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is we're struggling with this whole antibiotic.
You're seeing a quack,
so
man.
We are creating super bugs by giving antibiotics to every little thing because it will kill off some of the bacteria, but the ones that survive are the ones that are resistant to the antibiotics, and so we need to reduce that. So it's being reasonable and knowing like it's okay for kids to be sick. It's going to be miserable. In an ideal world, you know what? The problem is, so you have 5 kids. What's going to happen is you're going to cycle, right? You're going to go through months where somebody in your house is sick all the time. And that's just part of it.
Trying to make them cry.
So that being said, I got one final question for you, and forgive me for this, but I'm going to force it on you because I feel like we need to for anybody who's going to listen to this. And I think it's important for both your world and my world to know what somebody's seeing clinically and benefits and, maybe lack of benefits. The flu vaccine.
Yeah. So flu vaccine. So there are thousands upon thousands of flu viruses. All right. They're all slightly genetically variable. And so every year they go through this extensive modeling to try to predict what are going to be the 3 or 4 most common variants of this virus, right? And it's a guess, but it's an educated guess. But then they create a vaccine that, can target those 4. 3 or 4. You'll see the term, trivalent, quadrivalent, whatever. But and guess what? Some years they're great, they're dead on. Some years they're not. All right. It's usually going to provide you some degree of protection. Usually it's going to reduce how severe, it reduces how likely you are to get it and how severe it's going to be. Your body's going to have some immunity already built up for it. The same thing, COVID virus, all of these things, COVID vaccine, there's all sorts of things there. But here's the other thing people like to say: I got the virus and I got sick. And I said, no, you got an immune system response to the virus, which is what you want to have happen, right? You weren't sick. You didn't have the virus there that was going to kill you. But what makes us feel bad when we're sick is our body's response to the bad thing. All right. And so it's a good thing, although it's not ideal to have that reaction. Your body is building up a response to the thing that could kill you. Yeah, you feel bad in the time. Most of us are lucky and we only get a sore arm or something from it. So I'm more of an advocate, me personally, as a physician, I'm more of an advocate for flu shots than I am for some like the COVID shot. A lot of it has to do with what are your susceptibilities. If you're an asthmatic person, you have COPD, you have lung disease, you're older, you're an obese kid, you've got diabetes. I mean, a flu virus can kill you, right? So that's when it's important that you take those steps. I'll be honest, most years my kids don't get flu shots. Actually, I don't know that they ever have. My wife doesn't get flu shots, but I get them for several reasons. Number one, I would have to wear a mask around clinic if I didn't, which, it's one of the policies. I don't want to. But I have had some lung issues in my life. So, so that's why I do it. So it's, again, very personalized. I think that's it.
Well, thank you, Dr. Rapp. One final question. Has a patient ever been healed directly just by rubbing your beard?
Well, they frown upon that. I can't say that. I can say that the pharmaceutical industry has approached me about doing some sampling of my beard.
Probably.
Yeah. It's
nothing against Pfizer.
What do they prescribe? Strands? Well, 7 strands 3 times a day.
Yeah, there's it's just gotten a little awkward at times, trying to acquire DNA and just sample out what's different about the beard DNA versus, the other stuff, because the other stuff's just as flawed as the rest of humanity. So,
well, speaking of humans and DNA, let's switch to some different DNA. It's that time of year, it seems like. I've been talking
4-legged animals.
Talking to a bunch of buddies and stuff. People that got dogs.
Yes.
Seems like they can't stop scratching themselves. And I've been to these people's houses. I know that there's not like a flea infestation going on. But what might be going on with them dogs and the scratching right now anyways?
Well, it's funny. So the itchy dog, that is the most common question I get in clinic. Is my dog is scratching the tar out of itself. Doc, what in the world do I do? And why is he doing this? And start with the why. And I think it's kind of funny. And here's my theory anyway, is the way we treat our pets and the way we handle our pets' health has changed so dramatically in the last 25 to 30 years. I honestly think we had itchy dogs all the way along.
And nobody cared.
Nobody cared. When I was a kid, I'm a veterinarian, and when I was a kid, I remember my dad, we'd have pizza as a family, and there might be half of a pizza left over. And you know where that half of Domino's pizza would go? Out to the dog.
Yeah.
Right. And who would dare commit that sin now, right? But that's how times have changed. So I think we've always had itchy dogs. It's just now we want to do something about it. But what do you do when you do have an itchy dog? Well, if you watch pet food commercials or you read on the internet, what gets blamed more often than not is pet foods. And well, there is some truth to that. I spent, when I was coming up being trained as a veterinarian and working during veterinary school, I actually worked for an animal dermatologist. Believe it or not, those things
Yeah.
exist, and they're growing, and
Yeah.
you're seeing more of them now. But I worked for an actual animal dermatologist where all they dealt with was,
Yeah.
skin conditions and things like itching. And again, it goes back to, okay, what do you actually see clinically? Food gets blamed all the time on the internet. If you only get this food or this vitamin, your dog will never itch again. Well, the vast majority of the time, the thing that makes your dog itch is actually environmental factors. So I tell people it's the same stuff that makes us sniffle and sneeze in the spring and the summer and the fall, the grasses and the pollens, the things that cause hay fever in the human being. Well, what happens in the canine is their first body system that gets irritated by these things is their skin. And the areas of the skin that get the most affected are the ears, the feet, the underbelly, the groin, around the genitals, the areas where either there's a lot of gland activity or there's not a lot.
Like rubbing of.
Right. And so those are the areas that get the most affected. And again, it's the things in the environment. And if you live in the upper Midwest, for instance, it's like inevitable, especially if you live in an agricultural community like ours. And so I've had patients over the years that the family takes, their snowbirds, and they take their dog to Nevada or Arizona, and the dog has no problem while it's down there. But then it comes back to Wisconsin or Minnesota, and then it has trouble. So what in the world do you do about that when your dog has environmental allergies? Well, there's a couple things you can do from a practical standpoint. You can use human antihistamines. So, things like diphenhydramine or cetirizine, trade name Zyrtec or trade name Benadryl, those things. You can contact us, of course. I can get into dosing and that kind of thing if people wanted to comment or reach out, via the web, and we can give dosing information on those things. But you can try them. And human antihistamines have a moderate effective rate, maybe 40 to 50% in animals. And if the animal doesn't derive any relief from that, then they actually have, now canine-specific anti-allergy medications that an animal can take. They tend to be pricier, of course, than what you can get over the counter, like all things seem to be. And they're sold right now on a prescription basis. But essentially what they do is they modify your immune system's response to just not react or overreact to things like pollens and grasses that your dog is constantly exposed to. And in the canine world, we call having environmental allergies that cause itchiness, we call it atopic dermatitis. I think Dr. Rapp's probably used the same term in the human world, or eczema. Right?
Eczema, atopic dermatitis.
Same thing. And really the same physiologic response. But those things are treatable. And there's some good medications out there nowadays. One in particular that has been kind of a game changer in the last 5 to 6 years is called Apoquil. It's an oral tablet that a dog gets twice a day to start for a couple weeks and then gets on it once a day. And the vast majority of my patients clinically, probably 95% or better, get significant relief from that. And the owners are happy and the dog is happy. And sometimes I think it's worse for the owners because they can't stand trying to sleep at night and their dog's at the foot of the bed scratching itself and its collar's jingling and the bed is shaking and driving everybody crazy. But there is relief out there. And your veterinarian or myself, if you live locally, we certainly can.
I have a follow-up question on that, because this is what the first question that will be brought to me in the human world would be, well, what can I do that's natural? Jake, I want to do something that's natural.
Natural. That's a good question.
Replace your carpets?
Well, I mean, in theory, that's not actually, because as funny as it is, we do allergy test animals occasionally and find out exactly what they might be allergic to. And an animal can be allergic to, corn pollen, or might be allergic. A dog can actually be allergic to a cat, believe it or not. And then it's simply, if it's just a couple things like that, it's avoidance, right? And that's as natural as you can get. And I always tell people, the hard part is with natural remedies is there's no studies being done on these things really. And if they are, they're not very well published. And so there's no hard evidence that a guy like you in the human world or like me would look at and be able to drive an answer from. So I tell people it quite simply. I said, it's very low probability that anything you're going to find in the store that's quote unquote natural is going to hurt your dog. And if you find something that works, tell me about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a stack of various things in my desk that, that people have brought that works great for that.
And then I will tell the next person about it, and I'll even give you credit for it.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is It's very rarely that happens,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Do cats handle this situation better than dogs?
It happens in cats, but it's less common.
They just don't care.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
And unfortunately, it is less common because there's just simply not as many treatment options in cats as there is in dogs. So they do get it. Oftentimes in cats, the go-to for a veterinarian is actually steroids. So for the lay people out there, things like prednisone, in that drug class, or if you haven't heard of prednisone, you've heard of cortisone cream,
Okay.
things in that drug class can be used on cats. I don't recommend you rub cortisone cream on your cat. Don't do that. But things
Too much.
class.
I'm assuming that steroids do the same thing too. Too much steroid on skin for too long breaks down their skin.
Same side effects. So I don't have, when I give this kind of advice, I don't have the exact same disclaimers as Dr. Rapp does, because
Renegade.
my employer is me. So I can fire myself if I give out too much information. But what I do tell, what I would tell people is, if I'm not your veterinarian, before you try anything, do seek out contact from your veterinarian and get their advice.
So same thing, like how long should they wait and see before they bring in a pet?
I ask people the same question all the time. I say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how itchy is your pet? And I say 1 meaning you hardly ever see them itch themselves, 10 meaning they're keeping themselves or you up at night itching. And if it's anything, 4 or 5 or above, that's probably the time you want to contact your veterinarian and see if you can't get some relief. Because if the skin gets too inflamed, if the rash gets too big, too widespread, it does set the situation up where your pet can then get things like staph infections or yeast infections, and those bugs can take over, and then it becomes more complicated to treat.
Final question. Do you ever get asked by the animals to have a letter for their emotional support human?
I think there's, I see a lot of, I see a lot of pets who would be better off by an emotional support horse, maybe going the other direction, and or an emotional support a dog.
That being said, I dog tease, but
an emotional support bird, because us human beings, we tend to worry a lot worse than our canine friends do.
The thing is, these animals are quite valuable to helping people with their life and health, and so it's important to care.
Yes, sir.
With that, we are going to wrap up. Thank you so much for listening. Please watch for the second episode, which will be releasing on our usual release date of Mondays. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and review on your favorite podcast app. If you have any questions that you would like us to address, topics you'd like us to address, or just to share feedback, or even people you would like us to bring on to interview, please write us at axandscalpelmedia@gmail.com, all spelled out. We want to finish our episodes just with a blessing for all of you. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you, and may he bring you peace. God bless.